Welcome to the Robotics Through Science Fiction podcast. I'm Robin Murphy, and in this episode, I'll review Trellis' Alchemy Wars Trilogy, a steampunk series about a robot named Jax. It's an alternative history where robotics is framed as part of an ongoing Protestant Reformation religious war between free will and predestination, and it gives a thoughtful exploration of ethical and moral concerns about intelligent robots, but with enough action to keep it going. Up until now, I would have said that Marge Piercy's He, She, and It posed the richest exploration of ethics and morality in robots, but Trellis' The Alchemy Wars Trilogy surpasses that, covering all the dimensions of ethics and morality with the Protestant Reformation thrown in. The books are not pedantic. Instead, the ethical concerns emerge naturally within an action-packed story of a robot rebellion. The protagonist is a robot named Jax, but a supporting character, Berenice Charlotte de Mornay-Périgord, gives Chrisjen Avasarala in the Expanse a run for her money as the most watch what I do next female character in science fiction. The trilogy is set in a steampunk alternative reality somewhere between the Civil War and World War I. The backstory is that reality began to diverge from our history in the late 1600s when the Dutch scientist Chrisjen Huygens goes far beyond his real-world contributions to create robots. The robots are a combination of engineering and an alchemical extra that endows them with both a human-like intelligence and an infinite power supply. In keeping with Huygens' actual contributions to the tick-tocking of precision clocks, the robots are called clackers, and the engineers that create them clockmakers. As a result of Huygens' discoveries, 200 to 300 years or so later, the Netherlands has used its intelligent but enslaved robotic labor force to become the dominant economic power in Europe. The Dutch have conquered Europe and colonized the New World, imposing Calvinism throughout. The use of clackers and automation so thoroughly defines the Netherlands that instead of being referred to as the House of Orange, the Dutch monarchy is called the Brasswork Throne. Only the government of New France, which is in exile and which would have been Canada, continues to resist the Netherlands' economic and religious dominance. And into this background of politics, a clacker named Jax manages to escape slavery to undergo a dangerous physical and metaphysical hero's journey to freedom. The Dutch government views clacker intelligence as a sophisticated form of automation rather than true agency. A clacker must fulfill its orders immediately and efficiently, otherwise it experiences increasing pain. Would normally be a gain function in an AI robot and in human behavioral schemas as well, becomes explicit visceral torment. Each task or objective has an associated gesh or compulsion to follow orders that cause the clacker's agony until the order is completed. The gesh appears associated with an artificial amygdala-like structure. The amygdala controls emotions in humans, and it's been the subject of research in using emotions as a computationally simple mechanism to control complex behaviors and behavioral interactions in robots without explicit reasoning. The Dutch view is that because the clackers literally have to follow orders even when they don't want to, they are predestined and thus do not have free will. Even the label clacker semantically reinforces a view of robots as automation. On the other hand, the French Catholics believe that clackers do have free will, albeit inhabited by the artificial amygdala, and thus a soul, and therefore they are being thwarted in God's plan of seeking salvation. The new French government, consistent with the early Catholic Church being actively against slavery, has set up an underground railroad to help the clackers. Unfortunately, the church's view later devolved to being against slavery of just Christians in response to the discovery of the New World native population, and then finally collapsed under political pressure into supporting a, quote, humane flavor of slavery. So, another difference with the real world. The Catholic reaction is reminiscent of Ian Banks's Culture Universe series, where the culture government is happy to coexist with any alien species as long as the species does not enslave its AIs. The contrast between the Calvinist and Catholic worldviews is fundamentally about the catch-22 nature of how people define a politically autonomous agent, a hot topic in robotics. The Calvinist Clockwork Guild falls into the trap that Cliff Nass expressed in his lecture, Esse Homo, or While It's Great to Be Labeled a Person, at the 2001 workshop that established the field of human-robot interaction. Cliff worried that people would fall into the circular logic of the Dred Scott decision, where the U.S. Supreme Court ignored Dred Scott's argument that he was a full human because since Scott was labeled a slave, regardless of whether he exhibited humanity, he had no legal recourse. Like Dred Scott, the clackers are helpless. The most they can do is derisively refer to all humans as clockmakers and surreptitiously greet other robots with the clockmaker's lie instead of hello. Given the focus of the book on ethics, it's not surprising that the trilogy serves as a practical illustration of the three types of morality outlined in Moral Machines by Wallach and Allen. There's operational morality, functional morality, and full moral agency. The clackers are intelligent enough to work in complex situations that can't be simulated. Therefore, they exceed the operational morality or direct accountability of their designers. The clackers are often responsible for decisions that require functional morality, such as providing medical care and controlling ships and other safety-intensive machinery. The clackers are shown to deliberate and reason, giving them full moral agency to determine right and wrong for dynamic situations, although that full moral agency is limited as the clackers are enslaved by the Gesh to respond in a prescribed way, regardless of what they think. The protagonist, Jax, acquires his sense of ethics on his hero's journey by employing all three of the top-down approaches listed in Moral Machines. Jax exercises consequentialism as he reasons about the consequence of his options, and applies deontology as he reasons about the alternative plans of actions in terms of his obligations, duties, and rights. Most appealing, Jax brings to bear virtue ethics as he tries consciously to develop a good character. In contrast to Jax and top-down approaches to ethical development, Queen Mab is literally a bad robot who embodies the dangers of relying on bottom-up ethics. In bottom-up ethical development, a robot would, in theory, learn what is good character, but the learned good character may be quite bad if it's given poor examples. Mab has been abused and tortured by humans to the point of madness before she escapes and sets up her clackers-only society, so it's not surprising that she's out for revenge on all humans, but it is surprising how much she replicates the abuse that she has taken upon the rogue clackers who make their way through the Underground Railroad to her expecting freedom. In bottom-up ethics, Mab might be excused for imposing the hierarchical system and cruelty she experienced, as she has known nothing else. Fortunately, Jax and several other clackers also have undergone the same cruel treatment at the hands of humans, but use their reasoning capabilities to imagine a more lofty goal, a view of good character. The trilogy proposes pressing questions for our times. If a Silicon Valley startup had created a clacker, would the company turn its head and declare their creation to be, just sophisticated automation? Would banks and governments eager for another economic unicorn be complicit and agree with that designation? Would we as citizens care enough to think about the evidence and object to that designation? Are bureaucrats knowledgeable enough to make regulations that are sensitive to the nuances of agency? Are we all, deep down, clockmakers?